You don't belong in this seat, and you certainly don't belong on this plane. That's what Brianna Vanderwall shouted at 19-year-old Jordan McCall, right before she made the mistake that would ruin her entire life. She thought her platinum status and her husband's money gave her the power to humiliate a young black student in front of 200 people. She thought she could snap her fingers and have the police drag him off Flight 382. But she didn't know who was walking down the jet bridge behind him. She didn't know that the man she was about to scream at wasn't just a passenger. He was the one person who could turn her world upside down. Sit down, buckle up, and get ready for the most satisfying flight of your life. This is the story of how entitlement met reality at 30,000 feet. The air inside Terminal 4 at JFK International Airport was thick with the specific kind of tension that only exists when a flight is delayed and then suddenly, miraculously, ready to board. It was a humid Tuesday afternoon in July, and Flight 382 to London Heathrow was already running 45 minutes behind schedule. Jordan McCall sat near the charging station at Gate 42, his knees bouncing nervously. At 19, Jordan still had the lanky, growing into himself look of a college sophomore. He was wearing a faded grey hoodie with MIT block letters across the chest, a hoodie he had earned through sleepless nights and a 4.0 GPA, and a pair of worn-out Converse sneakers. To the casual observer, he looked like a typical student. To the woman standing at the counter glaring at him, he looked like a problem. Jordan checked his phone. His dad had texted him 5 minutes ago. Running late. Security is a nightmare. Don't worry about the seat. I handled it. See you on board. Jordan smiled. His dad, Davies McCall, was always handling things. He traveled for work constantly, racking up miles and status that he rarely used for himself. But today was special. Today, Jordan was heading to London for a summer internship at a biotech firm, a massive opportunity that his dad had insisted they celebrate with a trip together. Passenger Jordan McCall, please approach the podium. The gate agent's voice crackled over the intercom. Jordan grabbed his backpack, a battered North Face that had seen better days, and walked up to the desk. The agent, a tired-looking woman named Sarah with dark circles under her eyes, smiled at him. Mr. McCall, looks like we have a change for you, Sarah said, tapping rapidly on her keyboard. Because the flight is overbooked in economy, and thanks to your father's status, we've bumped you up. You're in 4A, business class. Seriously? Jordan's eyes widened. He had never flown business before. Thank you so much. Enjoy it, honey, Sarah said, handing him a new boarding pass with the bold letters Priority printed at the top. Jordan took the ticket, feeling a surge of excitement. He texted his dad, got the upgrade. 4A. Then he joined the priority boarding lane. That was his first mistake, at least according to the woman in the oversized sun hat standing right behind him. Brianna Vanderwall was the kind of woman who wore her wealth like a weapon. Dressed in a cream-colored cashmere shawl, despite the summer heat, and holding a Louis Vuitton carry-on that likely cost more than Jordan's entire tuition, she was currently tapping her manicured nails against her phone screen. She was 55, wealthy, and perpetually dissatisfied with the service she received, no matter how premium it was. When Jordan stepped into the priority lane, Brianna let out a loud, theatrical sigh. She stepped up right behind him, so close he could smell her overpowering floral perfume. "Excuse me," she said, her voice sharp and nasal. "This is the priority lane." Jordan turned around, startled. He pulled one earbud out. "I know, I'm boarding." Brianna looked him up and down. Her eyes lingered on his scuffed sneakers, his hoodie, and his backpack. She sneered. "Priority is for first and business class passengers, economy boards in Group 4. That's over there. She pointed a long, acrylic-nailed finger toward the crowded seating area where families were wrestling with strollers. I know, Jordan said politely, holding up his boarding pass. I'm in 4A. Brianna squinted at the ticket, then laughed, a cold, short sound. 4A, there must be some mistake. They don't just hand those seats out to students. It was an upgrade, Jordan explained, though he didn't know why he felt the need to explain himself to this stranger. My dad. Oh, an upgrade, she interrupted, rolling her eyes. Right. Well, hurry up then. Some of us actually paid for our seats and would like to get out of this humidity. Jordan bit his tongue. Don't engage, he told himself. Just get on the plane. He turned back around, scanned his ticket, and walked down the jet bridge. He could hear Brianna huffing behind him, complaining to the gate agent about the lowering of standards and letting just anyone in the cabin. When Jordan stepped onto the plane, the difference was immediate. The lighting was softer, the air cooler. A flight attendant named Jessica, a young woman with a tight bun and a polite smile, greeted him. Welcome aboard, Mr. McCall. 4A is right here on your left window. Thanks, Jordan said. He found his seat, a massive leather recliner that looked more comfortable than his bed in the dorms. He stowed his backpack in the overhead bin and sat down, pulling out his iPad and a textbook on molecular biology. He wanted to get some reading done before the movie marathon started. He was just settling in, putting on his noise-cancelling headphones when a shadow fell over him. It was Brianna. Of course it was Brianna. She was standing in the aisle, blocking the flow of traffic. She stared at Jordan, then at the empty seat next to him, 4B, and then back at Jordan. She looked down at her own boarding pass. Seat 4B. This is unacceptable, she muttered, loud enough for the first 3 rows to hear. She slammed her bag into the overhead bin, jostling Jordan's backpack. Then, instead of sitting down, she pressed the call button. Once, twice, 3 times. Jessica, the flight attendant, hurried over. Is everything all right, Mrs. Vanderwall? No, Jessica, it is not, Brianna snapped, reading the attendant's name tag with disdain. I specifically requested a quiet environment. I fly this airline 3 times a month. I am a Platinum Diamond member. And you have seated me next to... She waved a hand vaguely at Jordan. A child. Jordan felt the heat rise in his cheeks. He kept his headphones on, pretending not to hear. But the music was paused. Mr. McCall is a ticketed passenger in this cabin, ma'am, Jessica said soothingly. It's a full flight today. He's wearing a hoodie, Brianna hissed. He looks like he just came from a basketball court. Is he even supposed to be here? Did you check his ticket? I saw him at the gate. He claimed he got an upgrade. Sounds suspicious if you ask me. People like him usually try to sneak into these seats. People like him. The words hung in the air, heavy and ugly. Jordan gripped his iPad tighter. He took a deep breath. Dad will be here soon, he thought. Just wait for Dad. I assure you, ma'am, his ticket is valid, Jessica said, her smile straining at the edges. Please, take your seat so we can finish boarding. Brianna glared at Jordan one last time before throwing herself into seat 4B. She made a show of wiping down the armrest between them with a sanitizing wipe, scrubbing it aggressively, as if Jordan were contagious. Don't think I'm not watching you, she muttered under her breath, low enough that Jessica couldn't hear, but loud enough for Jordan. I know a scam when I see one. Jordan turned up the volume on his music, staring out the window at the tarmac. He hoped the flight would be quick. He had no idea that the plane wouldn't even leave the gate before things spiraled out of control. 20 minutes passed. The plane was nearly full. The economy cabin was a sea of noise, but business class was relatively quiet, save for the aggressive typing of Brianna Vanderwall on her phone. Jordan was trying to focus on his biology text. He had highlighted a section on enzyme kinetics when he felt a sharp jab in his ribs. He pulled his headphones down. "Excuse me?" Brianna was staring at him, her face flushed with anger. "Where is it?" "Where is what?" Jordan asked, confused. "My phone. I had it right here on the center console," she accused, pointing to the small drink table shared between their seats. "I put it down for 2 seconds to get my water bottle, and now it's gone." Jordan looked at the console. It was empty. "I haven't seen it, Ma'am. I've been reading." "Don't lie to me," Brianna snapped. Her voice was rising in volume, attracting the attention of the man in 3A and a couple across the aisle in 4C and 4D. It was an iPhone 15 Pro Max, gold case. It didn't just walk away. "Check your bag," Jordan suggested calmly. "Maybe it fell between the seats." "I have checked my bag," Brianna yelled. "You took it. I saw you looking at it earlier. You probably swiped it when I was reaching for my bag." "I didn't touch your phone," Jordan said firmly. He closed his iPad cover. "I have my own phone. I don't need yours." "Oh, I'm sure you have a phone," Brianna scoffed. "But probably not one like mine. Empty your pockets." The cabin went silent. The hum of the air conditioning seemed to vanish. "Excuse me?" Jordan asked, his voice dropping an octave. "You heard me. Empty your pockets." Brianna stood up now, looming over him in the cramped space. "I'm not taking off until I get my phone back. Flight attendant, flight attendant." Jessica came running back from the galley, followed by the purser, a tall man named Todd. "What is the problem here?" Todd asked, his voice authoritative. "This boy stole my phone," Brianna shrieked, pointing a shaking finger at Jordan. "I want him searched immediately. He's a thief." "I did not steal her phone," Jordan said, looking Todd in the eye. "I've been sitting here reading the entire time. I haven't moved." Todd looked at Brianna. "Mom, are you sure you didn't misplace it? Have you checked the side pockets of the seat?" "I am not an idiot," Brianna yelled. "I know where I put it. He took it. Look at him. Does he look like he can afford a business class ticket? He probably stole the upgrade too." "Mom, please lower your voice," Todd said, glancing nervously at the other passengers. "Accusations of theft are very serious." "I want the police," Brianna declared, crossing her arms. "I want the police on this plane right now. I am not flying with a criminal sitting next to me. I feel unsafe. He's aggressive." Jordan almost laughed. He was sitting with his hands in his lap, pressed against the window to get as far away from her as possible. "Aggressive? I haven't done anything." "He's giving me threatening looks," Brianna lied, playing to the crowd. She turned to the couple in 4C. "You saw him, didn't you? Eyeing my purse?" The woman in 4C looked uncomfortable and looked away. I wasn't really watching." "See, he's terrorizing the cabin," Brianna cried. Todd looked at Jordan. He was in a difficult position. Brianna Vanderwall was a frequent flyer, a high-value customer, according to the manifest. Jordan was an upgrade with a student profile. In the corporate calculus of the airline industry, Brianna's complaints carried weight, even if they were absurd. "Sir," Todd said to Jordan, his tone shifting slightly. "Do you mind just checking around your seat? Just to be sure." "I checked," Jordan said. "It's not here." "Could you stand up, please?" Todd asked. "Just so we can look under the cushion?" Jordan felt a knot of humiliation tighten in his stomach. Everyone was watching. The man in 3A was filming with his phone. If Jordan refused, he looked guilty. If he complied, he was being treated like a criminal. "Fine," Jordan said. He unbuckled his seatbelt and stood up. He patted his hoodie pocket. "See? Just my phone. And my wallet." Todd leaned over and checked the seat crevices. He checked the floor. He checked the magazine pouch. "It's not here," Todd said, standing up. "He hid it," Brianna insisted. "He probably put it in his backpack. Search his bag." "I am not letting you search my bag," Jordan said, his voice hard now. "That's my private property. You have no right." "He's hiding it!" Brianna screamed triumphantly. "If he had nothing to hide, he'd show us. Todd, call the captain. Call the police. I want this thug off the plane." Todd looked at Jessica. They were losing control of the cabin. Passengers in economy were craning their necks to see what was happening. "Sir," Todd said, "if you just open the bag, we can resolve this quickly." "No," Jordan said. "I didn't steal anything. I'm not going to be humiliated because she lost her phone." "Then I have no choice," Brianna said, pulling out a second phone, a work phone, from her bag. "I'm calling 911. I'm reporting a theft and a hostile passenger." "Ma'am, you can't make calls right now," Jessica said. "Watch me," Brianna hissed. She dialed. "Hello? Police? Yes, I'm on flight 382 at the gate. There is a man here who has stolen my property and is behaving aggressively. I am afraid for my safety. He's refusing to cooperate with the crew. Yes. Seat 4A. Please hurry." She hung up and smirked at Jordan. "Game over, kid." Jordan sat back down, his heart pounding. He looked at his phone, a text from his dad. "Just cleared security. Running to the gate. Hold tight." Jordan texted back. "Hurry, please." She called the cops on me. The delay lengthened. The pilot, Captain Anderson, came over the PA system. "Folks, we have a minor passenger situation in the forward cabin. We're asking for your patience while we resolve it. We hope to be underway shortly." A collective groan went through the plane. In business class, the atmosphere was poisonous. Brianna sat with her arms crossed, staring straight ahead, a look of smug satisfaction on her face. Jordan stared out the window, fighting back tears of frustration. He had worked so hard to get where he was, to get into MIT, to get this internship, and in 5 minutes, this woman had reduced him to a stereotype. 10 minutes later, the heavy door of the plane opened. 2 Port Authority police officers walked onto the bridge. "Where is he?" one of the officers asked Todd at the door. Todd pointed to 4A. "The woman in 4B claims he stole her phone and became hostile." The officers, Officer Miller and Officer Gomez, walked down the aisle. They were imposing figures, weighed down by tactical vests and belts full of gear. "Sir," Officer Miller said, stopping at Jordan's row. "We've had a complaint." Jordan looked up. "I didn't do anything. She lost her phone and blamed me." "He refused to let them search his bag," Brianna piped up. "He's hiding it." "Is that true?" Officer Gomez asked. "Did you refuse a search?" "It's my private bag," Jordan said. "I have rights. I didn't steal anything." "Sir, if you have the phone, just give it back and we can handle this civilly," Miller said, his hand resting near his belt. "If we have to take you off the plane, you will be arrested for theft and interfering with a flight crew. That's a federal offense. You'll lose your flight and you'll likely be banned from the airline." "I don't have it," Jordan insisted, his voice cracking slightly. "Then stand up and grab your bag," Miller commanded. "We're going to have to escort you off the plane to sort this out. We can't hold the flight up any longer." "You can't do this," Jordan said. "My dad is on his way. He's boarding any second." "We can sort that out on the jet bridge," Gomez said. "Let's go." "Now." Brianna let out a cruel little laugh. "Tell your daddy to pick you up at the precinct, if he even exists." Jordan stood up, shaking. He grabbed his backpack. He felt the eyes of everyone on him. The judgment, the assumption of guilt. He walked into the aisle. "Turn around," Miller said. "Hands behind your back." "What?" "No." Jordan stepped back. "I'm coming with you. Why do you need to cuff me?" "Standard procedure for a hostile passenger," Miller said, grabbing Jordan's wrist. "I'm not hostile," Jordan yelled, pulling his arm away. "Resisting," Miller shouted. He shoved Jordan against the bulkhead wall. "Stop resisting." "Hey, take it easy," a passenger from row 3 shouted. "He's just a kid." "Stay back," Gomez warned the other passengers. Miller twisted Jordan's arm behind his back. The metal cuffs clicked tight. It hurt. It hurt physically, but the shame was worse. Jordan was being arrested for sitting in a seat, for existing. "Get him off my flight," Brianna said, dusting off her shawl. "And find my phone." Todd, the purser, looked sick. He knew this was wrong, but he had let it happen. He had let the platinum card overrule his gut instinct. The officers began to march Jordan toward the door. Jordan's head was down. He just wanted to disappear. "Wait." The voice came from the front of the plane. It wasn't loud, but it was incredibly deep and resonated with a power that stopped the officers in their tracks. Standing in the doorway of the plane, blocking the exit, was a man. He was tall, 6'3", wearing a bespoke navy suit that cost more than Brianna's entire wardrobe. He had a briefcase in one hand and a boarding pass in the other. His face was calm, but his eyes were burning with a cold, terrifying fury. He looked at the officers. He looked at the handcuffs on Jordan. He looked at Brianna. "What?" Davies McCall asked, his voice deadly quiet. "Do you think you are doing with my son?" The silence that fell over the cabin was absolute. It was the kind of silence where you could hear the hum of the avionics and the nervous breathing of the flight crew. Officer Miller paused, holding Jordan by the arm. He looked at the man blocking the doorway. There was an air of authority about Davies McCall that made the police uniform feel like a Halloween costume. "Sir, step aside," Officer Miller said, though his voice lacked its previous conviction. "We are conducting a police operation. You are arresting a 19-year-old honors student for sitting in a seat I paid for," Davies said. He didn't move an inch. He stepped fully onto the plane, forcing the officers to step back into the galley area. "Uncuff him. Now." "Who do you think you are?" Brianna shouted from her seat. She craned her neck to see. "Officer, arrest him too. He's obstructing justice. That's probably the father. The apple doesn't fall far from the tree." Davies's eyes shifted to Brianna. It was a look of such intense scrutiny that Brianna actually flinched. He walked past the officers, ignoring their commands to stop, and stood right next to Jordan. "Dad," Jordan whispered, "I didn't do it. She said I stole her phone." "I know you didn't, Jordan," Davies said softly. He looked at the cuffs. Then he looked at Todd, the purser. "You," Davies said, pointing at Todd. "You allowed this. You let a passenger dictate security protocols based on a baseless accusation?" "Sir, the lady insisted," Todd stammered. "She's a Platinum Diamond member." Davies let out a dry, humorless chuckle. "Platinum Diamond. I see." He reached into his inner suit pocket. Officer Gomez put his hand on his taser. "Sir, hands where I can see them." "Relax, officer," Davies said smoothly. "I'm getting my identification and my business card. You're going to need it for your report." He pulled out a sleek, black leather wallet and extracted a heavy metal card. He handed it to Todd. Todd took the card. He looked at it. His face went pale. All the blood drained from his cheeks, leaving him looking like a ghost. He looked up at Davies, his mouth opening and closing like a fish. "Ah, yeah. Read it," Davies said calmly. "Read the name and the title." Todd swallowed hard. "Davies McCall, Senior Partner, Sterling and Cromwell International Law, and... Todd squinted at the bottom logo. Member of the Board of Directors, Skyline Airways. Brianna froze. The officers exchanged a glance. Davies McCall wasn't just a lawyer. He was on the board of directors for the very airline they were sitting on. He was one of the people who signed the paychecks. He was the boss's boss's boss. "That's right," Davies said. "I was flying to London for a board meeting regarding our European expansion. I decided to bring my son along to celebrate his internship. And instead of a celebration, I walk in to find my airline, shackling him like a felon because a woman lost her phone." He turned to the officers. "Officers, you have arrested a passenger without evidence, without a warrant, and based solely on the hearsay of a woman who, judging by her behavior, is intoxicated with entitlement. If you do not remove those handcuffs in the next 5 seconds, I will have the General Counsel of the Port Authority on the phone before you can say lawsuit." Officer Miller uncuffed Jordan so fast the keys jangled. "Sir, we were just following the report provided by the crew." "We'll discuss the crew's competence later," Davies said, putting a protective hand on Jordan's shoulder. "Right now, we are going to solve the mystery of the missing phone." He walked down the aisle to seat 4B. Brianna was shrinking into a seat. She looked like a deflated balloon. "Mrs. Vanderwall, is it?" Davies asked, glancing at the manifest screen that Todd had left open on the wall mount. I know my rights," Brianna stammered, though her voice was trembling. He looked suspicious." "Suspicious?" Davies repeated. "Because he's young? Because he's black? Or because you simply couldn't conceive that he deserved to sit next to you?" "My phone is gone," Brianna insisted, trying to regain her ground. "That is a fact." Davies looked at the seat. He looked at the gap between the center console and the seat cushion. It was a tight squeeze. "Did you check the sliding track?" Davies asked Todd. "The business class seats on the 777-300ER have a notorious gap near the reclining mechanism. It's a design flaw we're currently fixing." Todd shook his head. I checked the cushion." Davies reached down. He didn't just feel around. He popped the plastic side paneling loose with a practiced snap. He knew exactly how these seats were built because he had approved the budget for them. He reached into the mechanical guts of the chair and pulled out an iPhone 15 Pro Max in a gold case. He held it up. The screen lit up with a notification. Message from hubby. "Stop spending so much money." "Is this your phone?" Davies asked, holding it out. Brianna stared at it. Her mouth opened, but no sound came out. "I asked you a question," Davies said, his voice thundering now. "Is this your phone?" "Yes," she whispered. "So," Davies turned to the cabin, addressing everyone. "My son didn't take it. It slipped down the side of the seat because you were careless. And instead of looking thoroughly or accepting help, you decided to ruin a young man's life." I made a mistake," Brianna muttered. "I'm sorry." "Sorry?" Davies laughed. "You had him handcuffed. You humiliated him." Davies turned to Todd. "Purser, what is the protocol for a passenger who verbally assaults another passenger, makes false police reports, and delays a flight by 45 minutes? Todd straightened up, sensing a chance to save his own job. "That is grounds for immediate removal from the flight, sir, and placement on the no-fly list pending investigation." "Do it," Davies said. "What?" Brianna shrieked. "You can't kick me off. I'm platinum." "Not anymore," Davies said. "I'm revoking your status effective immediately. I'll make the call myself once we land. You are a liability to this airline, Mrs. Vanderwall. You treat our crew poorly, you abuse fellow passengers, and you waste law enforcement resources." He pointed to the door. "Officers, I believe you have a passenger to escort off the plane, but it isn't my son." The officers, realizing they had nearly made a career-ending mistake, were all too eager to redirect their energy. They stepped up to row 4. "Ma'am, grab your things. Officer Miller said. "Let's go." "No, no!" Brianna clung to the armrest. "I have a meeting in London. You can't do this. Do you know who my husband is?" "I don't care who he is," Davies said, sitting down in seat 4A, Jordan's seat, and gesturing for Jordan to take the window. "But tell him to call me. I'm sure our legal team would love to chat with him about the emotional distress you've caused my son." Brianna was dragging her feet as the officers pulled her into the aisle. She was screaming, crying, her mascara running down her face. As she passed row 10, the economy cabin, who had heard everything thanks to the open curtains, erupted into applause. "Get off!" someone shouted. "Bye, Karen!" another yelled. Brianna Vanderwall was hauled off the plane, her Louis Vuitton bag trailing sadly behind her. The door closed. The jet bridge retracted. Davies McCall looked at Jordan. "You okay, son?" Jordan rubbed his wrists. They were red, but he was smiling. "Yeah, I am now." "I'm sorry I was late," Davies said, fastening his seatbelt. "But I'm glad I walked in when I did." Todd reappeared. He was sweating profusely. He was holding a bottle of Dom Perignon and a tray of warm nuts. "Mr. McCall," Todd said, his voice trembling. "Mr. McCall, Jr., on behalf of the entire crew, I am so sorry. There is no excuse for what happened." Davies looked at Todd. He didn't take the champagne. "Todd," Davies said, "you're right, there is no excuse. You let a bully run this cabin. You profiled my son because it was the path of least resistance. We're going to have a long talk about training protocols when we get back to New York. But for now," Davies looked at Jordan. "Do you want the champagne?" Jordan grinned. "I'm underage, Dad, but I'll take a Coke." "Get him a Coke," Davies said, "and bring me the scotch, the good stuff. I think I've earned it." Todd scurried away. As the plane taxied to the runway, the captain came over the intercom. "Ladies and gentlemen, we apologize for the delay. We have removed a disruptive passenger, and we are now number 1 for takeoff. And to our special guests in 4A and 4B, welcome aboard." Jordan looked out the window as the plane accelerated. The engines roared, pressing him back into the seat. He watched the terminal disappear, and with it, the memory of Brianna Vanderwall. She was probably in a holding cell right now, or at least standing at the curb, banned from the only airline that flew direct to London, explaining to her husband why she was coming home. Karma didn't just hit. It flew in on a private jet and landed right on her head. Jordan looked at his dad. "Thanks, Dad." Davies patted his arm. "Any time, kid. Now, tell me about this biotech firm. I want to hear everything." While Flight 382 was cruising at 35,000 feet over the Atlantic, a digital storm was brewing on the ground that moved much faster than a Boeing 777. Remember the man in seat 3A? His name was Sam Miller, a 24-year-old tech blogger with a modest following of about 15,000 subscribers. He hadn't just recorded a few seconds of the incident. He had recorded everything, from Brianna's first screech about the hoodie to Davies McCall's cinematic entrance, and finally, the humiliating exit of Mrs. Vanderwall. Sam didn't wait to land to upload it. He used the in-flight Wi-Fi. He titled the video, entitled, "Karen Tries to Arrest CEO's Son on Flight 382, Instant Regret." By the time Jordan was eating his dinner, a seared salmon dish the crew had brought him with apologetic, trembling hands, the video had 50,000 views. By the time Jordan fell asleep 2 hours later, it had hit 2.5 million. The internet does not forgive, and it certainly does not forget. Viewers dissected every frame. They identified Brianna's Louis Vuitton bag, limited edition 2021 collection. They zoomed in on her wedding ring, but most importantly, they fell in love with Jordan's calm demeanor and Davies's ruthless defense of his son. While the McCalls slept peacefully in the sky, Russian Flight 382 began trending on Twitter, X. Back at JFK, Brianna Vanderwall was currently sitting in a stark, fluorescent-lit office within the Port Authority precinct. She had been released without charge for the moment, as the airline hadn't officially filed the interference paperwork yet, but she was barred from re-entering the secure area. She was furious. She pulled out her phone, the same iPhone 15 Pro Max that had caused all this trouble, and dialed her husband, Richard Vanderwall. Richard was a hedge fund manager at Vanderwall and Associates on Wall Street, a man who valued discretion above all else. "Richard," Brianna sobbed into the phone, "you have to sue them. They kicked me off. They humiliated me. That man, that lawyer, he threatened me." Richard's voice on the other end was ice cold. "Brianna, where are you?" "I'm at the airport. Come pick me up and call our lawyers." "I don't think I can do that, Brianna," Richard said. "Have you checked the news?" "What? No, I've been dealing with these incompetent police officers." "Check the news," Richard said. "And then don't come to the office. Go to the Hamptons house. Stay there. Do not talk to the press." "Richard, what are you talking about?" Click. He hung up. Brianna opened her browser. Her face was on the front page of the Daily Mail. The New York Post had already run a headline. "Turbulence in first class. Socialite grounded after racist rant." She watched the video. She saw herself. She saw the ugly sneer on her face. She saw the comments. Imagine being this rich and this miserable. "That kid handled it like a champ. She deserves jail." "I know her. That's Brianna Vanderwall. She screamed at my barista last week." Brianna dropped her hand. For the first time in her life, money couldn't fix the problem. The problem was her, and the whole world was watching. Flight 382 touched down at Heathrow in the early morning mist. The flight had been smooth, but the atmosphere in the business cabin remained tense. The flight attendants had spent the entire 7 hours over-servicing Davies and Jordan, trying to make up for the catastrophe at the gate. When the seatbelt sign turned off, Davies stood up. He turned to the cabin. "I want to thank everyone for their patience," he said, his voice carrying clearly. "And for those of you who stood up for my son when the police were involved, thank you. It means more than you know." Several passengers clapped. Sam from 3A waved his phone. "Mr. McCall, you're trending #1 in the US right now." Davies frowned. "Trending?" "The video, sir. It's got 10 million views." Davies sighed. He didn't want fame. He wanted justice. But he knew that publicity was a powerful tool in a legal battle. "Send me the link, son." As they walked off the plane, a ground team from Skyline Airways was waiting for them. Not the usual gate agents, but the station manager for London Heathrow, a woman named Fiona. "Mr. McCall," Fiona said, looking pale. "Headquarters has been on the phone non-stop. The CEO is trying to reach you. The press is outside customs." "The press?" Jordan asked, adjusting his backpack. "For me?" "For both of you," Fiona said. "We have a private car waiting at the VIP exit to bypass the paparazzi." "Good," Davies said. "We have a meeting to get to." They were whisked away in a black Mercedes S-Class. As they drove toward central London, Jordan finally turned on his phone. It nearly vibrated out of his hand. Thousands of notifications, Instagram requests, text messages from friends he hadn't spoken to since middle school. "Dad," Jordan said, staring at the screen. "People are calling me a hero." "You are a hero, Jordan," Davies said, looking out at the passing London skyline. "You kept your dignity when someone tried to strip it away from you. That's harder than fighting back." They arrived at the hotel, the Savoy, but there was no time to rest. Davies had the board meeting, and Jordan had his internship orientation. At the biotech firm, Helix Dynamics, Jordan was nervous. He thought the video would be a distraction. He thought they might rescind the offer to avoid the drama. He walked into the lobby, his security badge waiting. The receptionist looked up. Her eyes widened. "You're him," she whispered. Jordan braced himself. "Yes, I'm Jordan." "Good for you," she said, giving him a thumbs up. "The director is waiting for you." Jordan walked into the orientation room. The other interns were there. They went silent. Then a girl named Chloe started a slow clap. The others joined in. It wasn't mocking. It was genuine respect. Jordan McCall wasn't just the new intern. He was the guy who stared down a Karen and won. Meanwhile, across the city, Davies McCall walked into the Skyline Airways boardroom. The mood was funeral somber. "Davies," the CEO, Arthur Sterling, said, standing up. We saw the video." "I should hope so," Davies said, placing his briefcase on the table. "Because we have a problem, Arthur. A systemic one." "We've already issued a public apology," Arthur said quickly, "and we've fired the gate agent." "The gate agent?" Davies slammed his hand on the table. "The gate agent didn't call the police, Arthur. The gate agent didn't handcuff my son. The system failed. The culture failed. You have flight crews who are so afraid of platinum passengers that they will violate federal law to appease them." Davies pulled out a file. "I want a full audit of all passenger discrimination complaints from the last 5 years. I want the crew of Flight 382 retrained or terminated, depending on their record. And Mrs. Vanderwall, I want her banned for life, not just from Skyline. I want us to push for her to be on the FAA no-fly list." "That's aggressive," Arthur noted. "They put my son in handcuffs," Davies said, his voice dropping to a whisper that was louder than a scream. "Aggressive is the starting point." 2 weeks later, back in New York, the initial viral fame had died down, as internet cycles usually do, but the legal machinery was just getting started. Davies McCall didn't just let it go. He sued. He filed a civil suit against Brianna Vanderwall for defamation, emotional distress, and false imprisonment. He also filed a suit against the Port Authority for excessive force and profiling. The discovery phase of the lawsuit against Brianna was where the real drama happened. Davies's legal team, led by a shark of a litigator named Sarah Jenkins, requested Brianna's phone records and past travel history. Brianna's lawyers fought it, claiming privacy, but the judge, who had seen the video, overruled them. What they found was shocking. Brianna Vanderwall had made 14 complaints to airlines in the last 3 years. In 2022, she demanded a flight attendant be fired because her Diet Coke was warm. In 2023, she called security on a Hispanic man in first class because he looked like a drug dealer. He was a heart surgeon. She had a history of weaponizing the police against service workers and minorities. This wasn't a one-time mistake. It was a pattern. The deposition was scheduled for a rainy Tuesday in Manhattan. Brianna arrived wearing dark sunglasses and a scarf, trying to hide her face. She looked thinner, haggard. The social exile had been brutal. The Hamptons Country Club had revoked her membership. Her friends had stopped calling. Even her charity galas had uninvited her. She sat across from Davies and Jordan. She refused to look at them. "Mrs. Vanderwall," Sarah Jenkins asked, "on the day in question, did you see Mr. McCall steal your phone?" I thought I did," Brianna mumbled. "Thought you did? Or did you assume he did because of his race and his clothing?" "I was stressed," Brianna snapped. "I was tired. It was a mistake." "A mistake that led to a young man in handcuffs," Sarah said. "Tell me, Mrs. Vanderwall, when you found the phone, did you apologize?" I don't remember." "The video shows you did not," Sarah said. The video shows you tried to play the victim until the very last second. Then came the bombshell. Sarah placed a document on the table. Mrs. Vanderwall, are you aware that your husband, Richard Vanderwall, is currently under investigation by the SEC? Brianna froze. What? It seems that after the video went viral, some internet sleuths started looking into your family's finances. They found some irregularities. The SEC took notice. Brianna's face crumpled. The karma wasn't just hitting her, it was dismantling her entire existence. We are willing to settle, Brianna's lawyer said quickly, looking terrified. Davies McCall leaned forward. We don't want your money. We want an admission, a public, written admission of guilt. And I want you to fund a scholarship, the Jordan McCall Scholarship for underrepresented students in STEM, $500,000. That's the price. Brianna looked at her lawyer. He nodded. She had no choice. If this went to trial, the jury would destroy her. Fine, she whispered. 6 months had passed since the incident on Flight 3822. But for the Vanderwall family, time hadn't healed any wounds. It had only allowed the infection to spread. The settlement agreement had been signed in a sterile conference room in Lower Manhattan. Brianna Vanderwall, once the queen of the Upper East Side social circuit, had sat in silence as she signed away a check for $500,000. It was the first installment of the Jordan McCall Scholarship for underrepresented students in STEM. But the money was the least of her problems. The true twist, the one that nobody saw coming, not even Davies McCall, was the Streisand effect. By trying to silence Jordan and scrub the internet of her embarrassment, Brianna had drawn the gaze of the entire world upon her family. And among those watching were the forensic accountants at the Securities and Exchange Commission, SEC. It happened on a Tuesday morning, just as the autumn leaves were turning gold in Central Park. Richard Vanderwall was eating breakfast in their penthouse, pointedly ignoring his wife. The air between them had been toxic for months. Suddenly, the front door splintered inward with a deafening crash. FBI, search warrant! Brianna dropped her coffee mug, the porcelain shattering on the marble floor, a sound eerily reminiscent of her life falling apart. Agents in windbreakers swarmed the apartment, seizing laptops, phones, and boxes of documents. It turned out that the internet sleuths who had dissected the viral plane video had noticed something odd about Richard's firm's frantic stock dumps the day after the video trended. They tipped off the authorities. The investigation revealed a decade-long scheme of insider trading and offshore laundering. Richard Vanderwall wasn't just a hedge fund manager, he was a fraud. And he would have gotten away with it too if his wife hadn't drawn the eyes of the world to their doorstep over a missing iPhone. The indictment came down 3 weeks later. Richard's assets were frozen. The penthouse was seized. The Hamptons estate was placed in foreclosure. Richard, facing 20 years in federal prison, filed for divorce from a jail cell, citing irreconcilable differences and blaming Brianna publicly for his downfall. Brianna was left with nothing. The Karen of Flight 382 was now homeless, husbandless, and penniless. Cut to a rainy afternoon in New Jersey, 6 months later. A woman stood in the checkout line of a discount grocery store. She wore a heavy coat and a wool hat pulled low, trying to make herself invisible. She placed a carton of milk, a loaf of generic bread, and a frozen dinner on the belt. Her card was declined. "It says insufficient funds, hun," the cashier said loudly. Brianna Vanderwall felt the heat rise in her cheeks, a familiar sensation, but one that no longer carried power, only shame. "Try it again, please." "I tried it twice. You got another card?" Brianna fumbled in her purse, a knockoff bag she had bought at a consignment shop because she had been forced to auction off her Louis Vuitton collection to pay her legal fees. She found a crumpled $10 bill and handed it over, her hands shaking. As she walked out into the rain, waiting for a public bus, a teenager walking past stopped and squinted at her. He pulled out his phone. "Hey, aren't you the lady from the plane, the one who got owned?" Brianna didn't scream. She didn't call the police. She just pulled her coat tighter and walked away, disappearing into the grey anonymity of her new life. The silence she had once demanded from the world was now the only thing she had left. Meanwhile, in Cambridge, Massachusetts, the atmosphere was vibrant with hope. It was the inaugural reception for the Jordan McCall Scholarship. The event was held in a grand hall at MIT, filled with professors, students, and industry leaders. Jordan stood at the podium, looking older, more confident. He wasn't just the kid in the hoodie anymore. He was a symbol of resilience. When that incident happened, Jordan told the crowd, his voice steady, I felt small. I felt like I didn't belong. But because of the support I received, and because my father stood up for me, we were able to turn something ugly into something beautiful. He gestured to the front row, where 5 nervous but excited high school seniors sat. These 5 students are the first recipients. Their tuition is fully paid. They belong here, and no one can ever tell them otherwise. The room erupted in applause. Davies McCall stood in the wings, wiping a tear from his eye. He had won many cases in his career, closed billion-dollar deals, and sat on prestigious boards. But nothing, absolutely nothing, compared to the pride he felt in this moment. After the ceremony, Jordan found his dad. "You ready for the next adventure?" "Always," Davies smiled. "Bags are packed." A week later, they were back at JFK Terminal 4. The same terminal, the same gate. But everything felt different. The staff recognized them immediately. The gate agent, a new hire named Emir, who had been trained under the new McCall protocols, beamed at them. "Mr. McCall and Mr. McCall," she said, "we have your seats ready. And don't worry, we've double-checked the seat cushions." She winked. Jordan laughed. It was a genuine, unburdened laugh. They boarded the plane, a flight to Tokyo this time. As they walked into the first-class cabin, the trauma of the past seemed to evaporate. They settled into seats 1A and 1B. Jordan looked out the window as the engines roared to life. He watched the tarmac blur, the ground falling away as they lifted into the sky. He thought about Brianna, somewhere down there in the vast grid of the city, living with the consequences of her hate. He thought about the 5 students starting college next fall. He thought about the man sitting next to him. "Dad?" Jordan asked over the hum of the cabin. "Yeah, son. Thanks for not just being a lawyer that day. Thanks for being a dad." Davies put down his book and looked at his son. "Jordan, the most important job I have isn't at the firm. It's making sure the world knows who you are, and making sure you know who you are." The flight attendant arrived with a tray. "Champagne for you, Mr. McCall, and a Coke for you, Jordan." "Actually," Jordan grinned, "I'll take a sparkling water, with lime. Coming right up." The plane banked over the ocean, chasing the sunset. The turbulence was gone, the skies were clear, and for Jordan McCall, the view from the top had never looked so good. What an incredible journey. From a moment of pure prejudice to a massive victory for justice, Jordan and Davies showed us exactly how to handle a bully. Brianna lost her status, her reputation, and her fortune, all because she couldn't treat a teenager with basic human respect. It's a harsh lesson, but a necessary one. Acts of kindness cost nothing, but acts of entitlement can cost you everything. If this story satisfied your justice cravings, please smash that like button. It helps the algorithm find more people who need to hear this message. Subscribe to the channel and hit the bell icon so you don't miss our next story about karmic justice. And I have a question for you. Do you think Brianna's punishment fits the crime, or was it too harsh? Let me know in the comments below. I read every single one. Thanks for watching, and stay safe out there.